Massachusetts is slashing $500 million from its energy efficiency program, MassSave. This decision, fueled by those soaring gas bills everyone is seeing and all the customer outcry, it has really ignited a huge debate about trying to balance affordability with long-term savings and the state's ambitious climate goals. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the deep dive to stay, up to date on critical issues like this. Okay, so let's unpack this a little. The Department of Public Utilities, or DPU, the one that regulates the state's energy sector, they initially proposed a $5 billion budget for MassSave for the years 2025 to 2027. But they ultimately approved a $4.5 billion budget. So that's a 10% reduction overall, a 25% cut for gas programs, and a 15% cut for electric. So the DPU says, that they're trying to protect customers from those sky-high energy bills. But is this really the right move? I mean, here's where it gets really interesting. Environmental activists are calling this cut short-sighted. They're arguing that while it might ease the pain, now it could end up costing residents way more down the line. The Massachusetts Sierra Club, for example, warns that saving $100 now on energy efficiency could lead to spending $1,000 later because of lost energy savings. That's a pretty stark warning. So what does this all mean for you? Well, DPU claims that this budget cut will lower the energy efficiency surcharge on your future bills, but the actual impact is still kind of murky. What is clear is that gas customers will now see this surcharge as like a separate line item on their bills, which, should in theory increase transparency. So now let's kind of dive into MassSave's track record. Since its launch in 2013, this program has generated a whopping $31 billion in energy savings for customers, and projections show that it could generate another $13.7 billion by 2027. However, MassSave has also been blamed for the recent spike in gas bills, accounting for roughly 60% of the increase for some customers. So, we're faced with a little bit of a dilemma here. Cutting MassSave might offer some immediate relief on those crazy energy bills, but it could undermine those long-term savings and throw a wrench in Massachusetts' climate goals. Speaking of climate goals, Massachusetts has set a target of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. And MassSave is like a key player in that plan, especially when it comes to decarbonizing household heating systems. You see, Massachusetts wants to transition 500,000 households to heat pumps by 2030, which are much more energy efficient than traditional heating systems. But here's the catch. Experts say that even this, ambitious target, which was set before the MassSave budget cut, might not even be enough to reach the state's climate goals. They're arguing that the current plan, even with all its ambition, will only get us about halfway to the greenhouse gas reductions outlined in the state's Clean Energy on Climate plan. And, and the recent budget cut to MassSave could make reaching those goals even harder. It's like taking a step back just when we need to be sprinting forward. Okay, so now let's add another layer to this. This recent spike in gas bills is partly because of that unusually cold winter we had, and also the fact that MassSave only adjusts its rates every 3 years. So critics are arguing that this increase in the MassSave budget, it barely even keeps up with inflation. They're calling these budget cuts disappointing and short-sighted, especially considering that the previous 3-year plan had a budget of $3.94 billion. And it's important to remember that your energy bill, well, it's affected by a lot of different factors, not just MassSave, the condition of those gas pipelines, the price of natural gas globally, and good old inflation, they all play a role. But there's not a lot of oversight on how those utility companies determine the charges for maintaining and upgrading those gas pipelines. Some folks are really pushing for the DPU to have more power, to scrutinize those proposed projects and explore alternatives like geothermal energy. They argue that the current system, it actually kind of incentivizes gas companies to keep investing in fossil fuel infrastructure because they can pass the costs and profits onto, you, the ratepayer, for any gas pipelines they build or maintain. So what is the DPU actually doing about all this? Well, they've slashed the overall MassSave budget, but they haven't really changed the specifics of the plan. They basically told the utilities that run MassSave to, just go where to make those cuts, with a deadline of May 1st to submit their suggestions. However, and this is crucial, the DPU is urging utilities to kind of think outside the box a little when it comes to funding. They're suggesting that utilities work with the legislature to find funding sources that go beyond just the ratepayers. Right now, MassSave is funded entirely by customer contributions, but the DPU acknowledges that putting the entire financial burden of the state's decarbonization goals onto the shoulders of ratepayers, it's just not sustainable. So they're suggesting exploring other options like legislative appropriations or bond authorizations. These alternatives could supplement the funds from ratepayers and actually speed up the savings that benefits from these programs. The DPU also pointed to the potential of using federal funds, either to replace or supplement program funds. While a lot of those environmental and climate leaders are kind of on board with this whole diversifying funding sources thing, they also recognize that there are challenges, especially especially, given the uncertainty surrounding federal funding for climate projects these days. Another major concern is the impact these budget cuts will have on mass save programs that are specifically designed to help low and moderate income households. Before the $500 million reduction, the plan allocated $1.9 billion for equity-related efforts. Of that, $1.3 billion was earmarked for incentives for low and moderate income customers. And experts are pointing out that this kind of, equity-focused work really requires a significant budget and really coordinated outreach. Now, it's also important to acknowledge that even with this budget cut, Mass Save is still one of the largest per capita energy efficiency programs in the entire U.S. So while the available funding will be less, Massachusetts will still have, significant capacity for energy efficiency initiatives. In response to all this anxiety about those rising gas bills, the DPU has also taken some steps to offer some immediate relief. They approved proposals by gas companies to lower residential gas bills for March and April. So this reduction applies to the gas you use in March, and you'll see the impact of this on your April bill. Additionally, the DPU they extended the service shutoff moratorium, which basically prevents utility companies from disconnecting services to homes that are facing financial hardship. The moratorium was set to expire on March 15th, but it's been extended to April 1st. Eversource, one of the major utility companies in Massachusetts, are also trying to soften the blow of those rising bills. They announced a 10% reduction in the local distribution adjustment charge, which is a fancy way of saying that it's the portion of your gas bill that covers the cost of delivering gas to your home. This reduction went into effect on March 1st, and combined with some other adjustments, it should result in lower rates for customers during those our peak months. Despite all the challenges and concerns, Eversource expressed confidence that they can keep Massachusetts at the forefront of those energy efficiency decarbonization efforts. They emphasize their commitment to working collaboratively to find solutions that balance, affordability for customers with the pursuit of a clean energy future. To combat climate change, they stress that energy efficiency is just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to decarbonization. And they highlighted the need for collective buy-in to address the region's, energy supply challenges. So, the situation in Massachusetts really kind of highlights this critical dilemma that, well, a lot of places are facing when they try to transition over to cleaner energy. How do we balance this immediate need for affordable energy with the long-term goal of sustainability? The choices that are made today, well, they're going to have this ripple effect, shaping not just our energy landscape, but also the economic well-being of residents and the progress towards those climate goals. And what's really fascinating here is that this isn't just a Massachusetts problem. It's like a global challenge. And there are different approaches being taken all over the world. Some countries are heavily subsidizing renewable energy, while others are focusing on those carbon pricing mechanisms. There really is no, one-size-fits-all solution. And if we try to, connect this back to the bigger picture, the whole mass save debate is really kind of a microcosm of this larger struggle to decarbonize our economies. It forces us to confront some really tough questions like, are we willing to accept those, slightly higher energy bills now to avoid much larger costs down the road? How do we ensure that the transition to clean energy is, fair and that it doesn't disproportionately burden those low and moderate income households? What role should the government really play in incentivizing energy efficiency and supporting the development of renewable energy sources? And this raises another important question. What are you willing to do to contribute to a cleaner energy future? Are you willing to, invest in those energy efficient appliances? Reduce your energy consumption? Advocate for some, policy changes? I mean, this mass save situation, it's a good reminder that we all really do have a role to play in shaping our energy future. It's a complex issue with, no easy answers, but it's definitely a conversation that we need to be having. And don't forget to like and subscribe to The Deep Dive for more of those in-depth explorations of those critical issues.